This is the second section. This leads along with Math Standard, Colorado Math Standard 2.2a little I.2, which will help you along with some more ratios. First problem that goes along with your worksheet is the foundation of a home is 1/8 the square foot of the entire house. The foundation is 700 square feet. What portion would represent 500 square feet? So we're looking for another fraction. Okay, so if you think about it, you have a foundation like your basement is 700 square feet. That's going to accommodate 1/8 of the entire house. They want to know what fraction is going to go along with just a 500 feet, perhaps a smaller basement, but the same square footage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about 1/8, and I'm going to make that this, and that's going to accommodate a 700 square foot house. So now I have a fraction over a number. But we know that that's going to be equal to the house size, or another ratio over 500. So I have my part over my whole, and I want another part over here. So a little trick we have to do, we have a fraction over a number, so the 700. So I'm going to put the 700 over 1. So now I have a fraction over a fraction. And if you remember a fraction over a fraction, that just is division of two fractions, which means you're going to multiply the reciprocal of the bottom by the top. The reciprocal is the flip over. So I have 1/8, so I'm going to make this a little simpler, times, I'm going to flip 700 over 1 over, so I get 1 over 700. And that's going to give me 1 over 5,600. So the left side of this problem, that ugly thing, now just comes down to 1 over 5,600. And that's going to be equal to x over 500. So we want to go ahead and solve this now. Again, we're going to do our cross multiplication. So I'm going to go that times that, so I'm going to get 500, and then x times 5,600, so I get 5,600x. Remember, these are being multiplied, so I need to now divide by both sides by 5,600. And so I'm going to get x is equal to, our variable is equal to, I'm going to cancel 0 on top, 0 on bottom, same spot. 0 on bottom, 0 on top, same spot. So I get 5 over 56. That is the fraction that we're talking about if we had a 500 square foot foundation as far as the house went. Next question talks about a trip is 1/4 over at 16 miles. So we're taking a trip someplace, and at 16 of the miles, we're 1/4 of the way in. So 25% of the way there. Okay, now we want to know, and so we could say, well, if that's the case, the whole trip would be 64 miles. That's great. We didn't answer the question, though. What portion of the trip is 10 miles? So 1/4 of the trip is going to be equivalent to 16 miles. What portion of the trip is going to be 10 miles? Okay, so again, I have a fraction over a number, 1/4 over 16. Well, let's make 16 a fraction by putting it over 1. Now I have a fraction over a fraction, which is the same thing as a division of fractions, which is the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal of the denominator, or the bottom. So I'm going to go 1/4 times, I'm going to flip over 16 over 1, give me 1 over 16, and that's going to give me 1 over 64. So 1 over 64 is equal to x over 10. Again, this is going to be the product of the means is equal to the product of the extremes, otherwise known as cross multiplication. So 64 times x is 64x. 1 times 10 is 10. Divide each side. Remember, 64 and x are being held together by multiplication. Division undoes them. So I'm going to get 10 over 64. And then I have to look at this, and so your answer is 10 over 64, but I can reduce the fraction. It looks like 2 goes into both the top and the bottom, so we'll start with 2. So 2 goes into 10 5 times. 2 goes into 64 how many times? What's half of 64? That would be 32. I can't reduce this any further. So 5/32 of the trip is going to be 10 miles. Next one talks about pizza. Now we're going to talk about those rectangular pizzas that you can buy, not the circular ones. This would be to get a visual. So you're talking about a rectangle of a pizza rather than a circle. And so this particular question says, A rectangular pizza is 1/6 eaten if 5 slices are gone. So you have a portion of the pizza, there's 5 slices gone, that's 1/6 of it are gone. They want to know how much is 3 slices of pizza. Okay, so I have 1/6 of my pizza. Okay, 1/6 of my pizza. And then we want to know if I took 5 slices, how are we going to go about doing this? And so how much? So 1/6 of the pizza is equivalent to 5 pieces. So how much is 3 slices of the pizza? Okay, so again, I have a fraction over number, so I have 1/6 over 5. Well, let's make 5 a fraction by putting it over 1. Remember, fraction over fraction, we're going to multiply by the reciprocal of the denominator, so the reciprocal is the flip over. So I have 1 over 6 times 1 over 5. Top to top, 1 times 1 is 1, 6 times 5 is 30, so 1/30. 1/30 is equal to x over 3. Now we're going to do the product of the means equal to the product of the extremes. So I'm going to multiply, cross multiplication. So I get 30x is equal to 3. X equals 3 over 30. And I think we can go ahead and reduce this. 3 over 30, 3 goes in itself once. How many times does 3 go into 30? 10 times. So if 1/6 of our pizza is 5 slices, then 3 slices is 1/10 of our pizza. Final question of this section talks about the medication. Dose of medication is 1/3 given at 20 cc's. What is given at 18 cc's? So the situation in the story problem is you are going to give a patient a certain amount of medication. And so if I gave 20 cc's, that's going to be 1/3 of the medication that needs to be given. But we want to know if at 18 cc's, what fraction of our numbers are going to be there. So I have 1/3. So 1/3 of my dose is 20 cc's. And how much would be given at 18 cc's? Again, fraction over fraction. So fraction over number. So 1/3 over 20. Let's make 20 a fraction, so put it over 1. So I'm going to go multiply by the reciprocal. Remember, flip over the denominator. So I set that equal. So 1 over 60. Cross multiply. Product of means equals product of extremes. So I get 60x is equal to 18. X, remember, I'm going to get 60 or bring it over. 60 times x, so undo it by division. I get 18 over 60. And then you have to think about, is there a number that goes into both 18 and 60? Well, some people might say, oh, you know what? 2 does. You're absolutely right. 2 goes into 18 9 times. 2 goes into 60 30 times. Is there any other way that we can reduce this down a little bit further? 2 doesn't go into both of those, but the number 3 goes into both. So 3 goes into 9 3 times. 3 goes into 30 10 times. So if 1/3 of my medication is 20 cc's, well, 18 cc's is going to be 3/10 of our medication. That concludes this section of these lessons.